One of the Christmas time traditions that have developed in the Manley household over last several years is shopping with Dad. Not really sure how that happened, because probably I'm the one in the house that hates shopping the most. But I got a hunch it was probably sometime when Louise was cooking and didn't want the kids around and said, hey, take the kids Christmas shopping. But somehow it's developed from that. And it's kind of become an annual event, and usually it's just a day or so before Christmas. Some of you saw us in town yesterday trekking through the madness. I'm glad at that time of year, I'm glad that there's only so many stores in Kaunakakai. You know what I'm saying? But we have a good time together, and it's always fun to see, the kids trying to find just the right gift for Mom or for their siblings. And we'll go to a different store and they'll show me something and they'll say, Dad, do you think they'll like this? Dad, do you think this would be good for them? And what they're trying to do is they're trying to find the gift that fits, the one that's right. And you all know what that's all about. We're all there. I don't know anybody that purposely goes out and tries to buy a gift that doesn't work, doesn't fit, Nobody goes with the intention of, well, I hope they really hate this. I really hope they'll take this back right away when I give it to them. No, the goal is we want them to be happy. We want them to like it. We want them to, when they open it, the surprise factor, the ooh, the ah factor, and then we're just kind of patting ourselves on the back through the whole deal. We want to know that we've found the right gift. And that's not anything new. It's as old really as Christmas, because again, we go back and we see what we traditionally call the wise men or the magi, and they came bearing gifts, right? You remember the gifts that they brought to this newborn king. They were fit for a king: gold, myrrh, and frankincense. They were appropriate. They were right gifts. Kind of reminds me of the little story that I read about these 3 little preschoolers that were in a Christmas play. And they were supposed to be the wise men. And their part in the play was they were supposed to come and bring their gift and present it to the newborn king. And so the first little boy comes up and he holds out his gift and he says, gold. The next little boy comes up and he holds up his gift and he says, myrrh. The next little boy comes up and he holds out his gift and he thinks for a moment and he says, Frank sent this. Appropriate gifts, right? We want to find the best gift, the good gift, the gift that fits. What's the right gift? What constitutes the right gift? Well, some people would say it's the value of the gift. If the gift is valuable, if it's expensive, then it's the best gift. So some people say that's what constitutes the best gift. Others would say, no, it's not the value, it's if it meets a need. If the gift meets a need of the person that it's being given to, then it's the best gift. So it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive, it just has to meet a need. So it could actually be a very inexpensive gift, but if it meets the need, it's the best gift. And then there's other people still that would argue, no, it's not the value of the gift, it's not whether it meets a need or not. The real part of this whole deal that makes it the best gift is the motive behind the gift. Because if the motive behind the gift isn't right, it can be an expensive gift, it can even be a gift that meets the need, but if the motive isn't right, it's not the best gift. If we're giving a gift because, well, if I give you a gift, then you're going to give me a gift back, right? Then it's not really the best deal. And over the last few weeks, we've been looking at a different kind of gift. Because, frankly, selecting gifts can be kind of a tricky deal. And so we've been looking at different kinds of gifts. Gifts that don't necessarily fit under the tree. But, even though they don't fit under the tree, they're very valuable gifts. They certainly meet needs. And hopefully they're given with the right motive and the right attitude. They won't fit in a box or a bag or have a bow on them, but they're extremely good gifts to give. And just by way of review, as we go back, the first week we looked at the gift of forgiveness. And we said that forgiveness, it's not an emotion, even though some of us think that it is. Well, I'm going to forgive when I feel like forgiving. That's not true forgiveness. True forgiveness is a promise, not based on how I feel, but based on a promise that says this: I promise that I will not bring this thing up and hold it against you anymore. And then it's a promise that when it comes into my mind, and it will, I won't dwell on it. I will choose not to dwell on it. And we also said that this gift of forgiveness sometimes is not just a one-time, okay, yeah, I'm going to forgive this person, boom, there it is. Sometimes it's a process. And it's a process that while we're going through it, we need to begin to pray for the person and we need to bless the person in the process. Sometimes it's a very difficult thing to forgive, to give that gift. But we also said the amazing thing about the gift of forgiveness is many times, in fact, I would venture to say most times, it's a gift that blesses the giver more than the receiver. It's a beautiful thing. And then we looked at the gift of honor. And honor, we defined it from Scripture as value, as esteem. When you honor someone, you're showing them value, you're showing them esteem, you're giving them some worth that God has already said that they are worthy. It's something that we can choose to be Christ-like in our attitude in as we change our thinking to more of a humble kind of thought, and we begin to see our attitude change like that of Christ. Then we can selflessly give in actions and honor other people. And this morning, as we continue on, we're going to look at one more gift that doesn't fit under the tree. It's a different kind of gift, and it's the gift of serving. The gift of serving. In Galatians chapter 5, verse 13, it says this: "For you were called to freedom, brethren. Only don't turn your freedom into an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another." Let me read it to you in another translation, a little bit clearer. It says this: "You have been called to live in freedom. Not freedom to satisfy your sinful nature, but freedom to serve one another in love." You and I have been called to be servants. You and I have been called to give the gift of serving, not just at Christmas time, but all year long. If you have been called a follower of Jesus Christ, if you have lined yourself up with the person of Jesus, you have been called to be a servant. And for us to get the best picture of what that looks like, what it looks like to give this gift of service, then the best person to go to, I think, would be the person of Jesus Christ. Wouldn't you agree? So we're going to look at one of the greatest acts of service. The greatest act, of course, was when He died on the cross for our sin. But probably, maybe arguably, one of the other greatest acts of service and giving of service is found in John chapter 13. And if you have your Bible this morning, if you'll look, we're going to look at the first 5 verses. John 13, 1 through 5. It says this: "Now before the feast of the Passover, Jesus, knowing that His hour had come, that He would depart out of this world to the Father, having loved His own who were in the world, He loved them to the end. During supper, the devil, having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, to betray Him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into His hands, and that He had come from God, and that He was going back to God, He got up from supper. He laid aside His garments, and taking a towel, He girded Himself. Then He poured water into the basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel with which He was girded. And every time I read this story, I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated not just by what was taking place, but by who was doing it. I mean, this is amazing if you stop and think about it, because if you go back a number of chapters to the first part of the Gospel of John, John identifies who Jesus was. He was the Word made flesh. Literally, He was God who came down. In Matthew's Gospels, we read that he was Emmanuel, God with us. This is the creator of the world washing the feet of his creation. It's an amazing picture. It's really just an amazing thought that he would do this action. Now I want to give you a little background here before we go on, because I think it's really important. We might miss it. Oh, this is a nice scene. Jesus stoops down, washes some feet. But there's some things that are going on in this scene that maybe you don't realize was going on. The first one is the fact that the disciples, they had just finished having an argument among themselves. Oh, it's not here in John 13. We have to go to Luke 22 to find that. It's a parallel passage. John doesn't record it, but Luke does. Same scene, and the disciples have this argument among themselves. Listen to what it says in Luke 22. And there arose a dispute among them as to which one of them was regarded to be the greatest. They were sitting here at this meal, and they start arguing who's better. It sounds like something that may happen at somebody's family dinner, you know? Oh, I'm smarter than you, stupid. I'm better than you. And then here's the disciples, these men that traveled with Jesus for 3 years and soaked up all his great stuff. And they're sitting there debating who was better. Well, no, Peter, I really don't think it's you. I think it's me. And this went back and forth. It goes on, it says, and he said to them, Jesus said to them, the kings of the Gentiles, they lord it over them. And those who have authority over them are called benefactors. But it is not this way with you. But the one who is the greatest among you must be like the youngest, and the leader like the servant. For who is greater, the one who reclines at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who reclines at the table? But I am among you as one who serves. They're having this debate. Who's greater? Who's better? Hey, I think Jesus likes me more. He spent time with me yesterday and you were never around. And they're having this battle between them, and Jesus steps in and he goes, guys, no, it can't be that way. It's not about who's the best. It's who's the servant here. And it's in that context, right after that argument, that Jesus does this act of washing the disciples' feet. I want you to understand something else that's going on there that's in that text in John 13. Judas has already gotten the idea from Satan to betray Jesus. And Jesus knows this. Jesus knows what Judas is planning on doing. I mean, here are the guys that have been with him all these years. They've just had this argument about who's best. And here's one of them sitting there, contemplating already how he's going to betray him, how he's going to turn him in. I mean, I don't know about you, but the last thing I would want to do is wash the feet of someone I knew who was just a short time later going to betray me. And then on top of that, would you understand what's going on here too, is that Jesus is preparing to die. He knows. If you look back at verse 1 of chapter 13, it says, now before the feast of the Passover, Jesus, knowing that his hour had come. What does that mean? The hour that was to come was this time that he would die. He knew that it was his time. So he's sitting here. Here's his disciples. They just had this argument about who's better, who's greater. And it's got to be a little bit discouraging because they've spent 3 years with these guys. Have they not gotten this yet? And then there's one, Judas. He's sitting over there and he's already thinking, I'm going to turn this guy in. I can't wait to turn this guy in. And in the midst of all that, Jesus knows that in a very short time, he's going to not only suffer and die, but he's going to bear the sin of the entire world on his shoulders. What do you suppose you might do if you knew it was the last time that you would have with some people that you were very close with? What do you suppose would be important to you if you knew it was your last Christmas with a group of people that you invested in and spent time with? kind of things do you think that you would want to happen during that time? I mean, would you think that maybe, well, yeah, somebody needs to take my mantle. Somebody needs to take the reins here of this group. Somebody needs to be the authoritarian. Somebody needs to have the power. I mean, so you know what? Before this all goes south real quick, I'm going to make sure these guys know. I mean, they've just gotten done battling over who's better. I'm going to make sure they know. No, you know what? So-and-so's in charge when I go very shortly. And then if something happens to him, then this guy's in charge. I mean, that's just organization, and we want to make sure that everything flows. You think maybe that's where you would be? You think maybe if you knew, man, this is it. I mean, this is the last really intimate time that we're going to have together. Do you think maybe you'd spend time going, guys, you know, hey, let's talk about some stuff that we've had a chance to go through together. Hey, I tell you what, you guys tell me, what was one of the memories that you can think of over the last 3 years that really sticks out to your mind? Yeah, Peter, you, what do you think? Feeding the 5,000. Oh, yeah, that was great. Wasn't that great, guys? Wasn't that great? Did you guys learn anything from this? Anybody else? Oh, yeah, John. Oh, the casting out of the demons. Yeah. Yeah, that was great. I mean, would you spend time just sitting around reminiscing about the great times that you'd have together? I mean, that would be okay. Or maybe if you knew this is it, man, these times they're going to change forever. I'm going to be gone. Maybe you pull out some mementos to hand out. Hey guys, this is just for you to hold on. Just a little remembrance. You know, when you pull it out of your robe, just think of me. You know. What would you do? What do you think might be important? What would it be that you'd want to leave with these people that you'd spent so much time with? And I submit to you this morning that Jesus gave them a gift. He gave them an act. He gave them an example that would burn in their minds for the rest of their lives. Because in the midst of all that was going on, he grabs a towel and a bowl of water and he bends down and he washes their feet. Now, it obviously made an impression on him even at that time, because if you read further, Peter even says, wait a minute, Lord, not me. But you got to know, after he had died, after he had rose again, and then after he went back into heaven, ascended into heaven, it must have really stood out to them, because then as they look back, they're, wow, and he washed my feet. Folks, this is an amazing picture of service. This is an amazing example for you and I to go, wow, where does that put me? And he told us at the end of this whole deal, he told his disciples, he said, what you've seen me do, go and do likewise. So he gives us instruction to be that kind of servant. And so as we finish up this morning, I want to just go over some things that are involved in truly serving. And if you have your notes this morning, would you put this down? Truly serving is about being aware of the needs around you. Being aware of the needs around you. See, in that culture, in those days, a host would normally offer his guest a bowl of water and a towel to wash their feet, because people didn't walk around with closed shoes like I'm wearing this morning. They would wear something very similar to a slipper. A few more straps on it. It was made of leather. It was a very dusty area, the Middle East, as we know. And so their feet would be very dusty. There's over 250,000 sweat glands in your feet. Did you know that? Yeah, interesting thought. Some of you go, yeah, I know. Every time my husband comes home, I know. And the bacteria, that bacteria that's emitted from your feet is the same bacteria that's in acne. For what it's worth, I'm not really sure what that means. But the reality is your feet sweat, they have bacteria bacteria. Now you're walking around and they're all dirty and dusty. And when you went into a home, in those days you were invited to a home, one of the first things they did is gave you a bowl and they gave you a towel and you washed your feet and you were refreshed and it just kind of made you feel good and everything was great. Now, if you were in a Gentile area, if you were in a Roman home, they had servants, they had household servants that would do it for you. But the Jews were a little bit different. The Jews felt like washing feet was such a low deal that not even a Jewish servant had to wash feet. Because that's just too lowly. So, if you remember, this is the scene of what we call the Last Supper. It's really the last Passover that Jesus would have with His disciples. And if you remember the whole story, Jesus had told His disciples to go and secure this room. It was an upper room in a person's house, and the person was ready to let Jesus use it, and so this is what they were using. They weren't really being hosted by anybody. They were borrowing somebody's room. So there really wasn't a host. And so here's all these guys, and I know you've seen the pictures and the paintings of these guys sitting around a table, and isn't it interesting? They're always sitting on the same side of the table. That's not the way it worked. In those days, they reclined. This was an Oriental culture. They literally would lay down and have their hand propped up their head, and they would eat with the other hand. And you would lay so that you were right next to the other person. That's why when we read further on in the passage that John had his head against the chest of Jesus, you know, when you first read that, you go, oh, what's going on there? I mean, because we're thinking sitting in a chair and here's this guy with his head against. No, that's not the way it worked. His head was against Jesus' chest because he was the guy right next to Jesus as they reclined at these tables. But stop and think about it. You're reclining at a table. Your head is here, but my feet are down here, and the feet are just all the way down the line. And whoever's sitting at the end of the table, they got the worst of the deal, especially if the wind's blowing through that window. You're hurting. There's no host. There's nobody in charge of the bowl and the towel. Jesus looks around, sees a bunch of guys that need their feet washed. Hey, He's in charge. He's the man. He's the rabbi. Peter, go get a bowl and a towel. We need our feet washed. He could have done that. And Peter probably would have said, shoot, it's okay, I go. But he doesn't do that. He looks around, he sees the need. And folks, it wasn't just the need to wash feet. He saw beyond the physical need. He knew they also need an example of humility. They just got done arguing about who was best. What a better way to demonstrate where their minds needed to be than to walk over, grab the bowl and the towel himself and start washing their feet. Now, again, you got to imagine that in their minds, they must have been freaking out a little bit. Going, what's he doing? He's a rabbi. He's a master teacher. He's not supposed to wash feet. And yet he looked around. He saw the need. He met it. See, if you and I are going to give the gift of service, the first thing we need to do is we need to be alert to the needs around us. See, sometimes we get so single-focused, sometimes we get so zeroed in on what we think we need to do and what's important is that we miss that there are hurting people around us that have needs that we could meet, that we could serve, that we could give this gift of service, and we miss it because we're not alert and aware of the needs around us. We have the opportunity, maybe even in that process, to be a teacher to someone else that needs to see what it looks like to serve. And we miss that opportunity because we're right here. We got the blinders on and we just, man, I've got to get this done. I've got to be here. I've got to take care of this. And we miss it. Or we meet needs that aren't really needs. See, sometimes I'm afraid we serve to feel good about ourselves and not really meet somebody else's need. I mean, you know, it's great if you give a person some food if they really need it. You know, what good does it do to give a person a basket of food who's got a whole cupboard and refrigerator full of food at home? We might walk away feeling good about ourselves, but we didn't really meet a need. Well, what good does it do to clean for someone who's already cleaned? Or fix somebody's car that's not broken. You know? Sometimes, if we're not careful, we'll look to fill needs that aren't really needs just so that we feel good about ourselves. Sometimes I think we force what we think needs to be done on people because, well, it just seems like that's what should happen. I was in Oahu this past week, and we had some of the girls wrestlers for a tournament. And we had finished the tournament, and we had gone to one of my favorite places to eat, Pandas. And we just finished our orange chicken and firecracker chicken. And I was sitting there feeling fat and happy, and it was drizzling outside, it's kind of rainy. And I saw this woman walk in. I was sitting to where I could see the door, and I saw this woman walk in. And she appeared to be homeless, just the way she was dressed and the things that she was carrying with her. And I just watched. I thought, oh, I wonder what she's doing. And I watched, and she went up to the counter, and there were some people there that were being served, and she just waited. And then when the people were gone, she walked up, and I couldn't hear what she said, but she said something to the girl, and obviously she was asking for a cup for water because they gave her a little styrofoam cup. And then she walked over to the drink station and she got water, and my heart just started melting, and I thought I was the only one that had seen her, but the girls saw her too. And one of the girls said, "Oh, I'm going to go give her my food." Well, her plate was almost gone. There was like a few chow mein noodles on it yet. And I said, "No, don't give her your used food. Let's buy her a meal." Well, we were debating this thing, and I was kind of rebuking her for the used chow mein. This woman who had come in with two little boys and had gone out, and I saw her kind of watching this woman, but I didn't know if it was kind of one of those, paranoid, oh, keep my kids away from the homeless person. But obviously it wasn't. She walked out, she came back in, and she walked over there and she gave her 4 fortune cookies. They put them in the little package. And then the lady smiled and said thank you, and then the woman walked out. And I thought, oh my goodness, she needs more than fortune cookies. So I stood up and I went over and I said, "Hey, we would really love to buy you lunch. Could we buy you some lunch?" "Oh, no. I'm good. I've got this." And I said, "Oh, could we take you over to the counter? Maybe get you some chicken or whatever you want. You pick out whatever you want. Well, we'd love to buy you lunch." No. I'm good. I have these." I said, "Are you sure? We'd really like to buy you lunch." And she just kept smiling. "No, this is good." And she walked out with her fortune cookies. I wanted to sit her down and say, "No! I'm going to buy you food," and just bring it over. But for whatever reason, that wouldn't have met her need. She was okay. I don't understand that. But she was okay with 4 fortune cookies. She was happy, and a cup of water. See, sometimes we have to be careful that we're meeting needs that are really needs. We've got to be aware of what's going on around us, and we've got to know where people are at and what they need. Here's number 2. Truly serving is not just about being aware of the needs around you. It's about being willing to step out and down. Verse 4 of chapter 13, Jesus got up from supper. He laid aside his garments, and taking a towel, he girded himself. And he poured water into a basin. He began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. He's reclining there at the table. He sees the situation. He's heard this argument about who's best, and knowing that Judas is about ready to betray him, knowing that he's literally hours away from being crucified. And he gets up from the table, and the conversation's probably still going on, whatever it was at that point in the meal. And he walks over and he grabs this bowl and he removes his outer garment. And it doesn't say this, but in my mind, it might as well be he took off his crown. He set it down. And he got down and washed feet. He had to get down. They're reclining. He had to probably get down on his knees to wash their feet as they lay on these pillows around this table. Sometimes, folks, we spend a whole lot of time debating and talking about how we're going to serve and what the best way to serve is. And sometimes it's just time to get up from the table and go do it. Sometimes it's about just getting up, out, and down and taking care of business. It's not about, well, what's the best strategy and how should we do? And you know what? We want to be really good with our money here. And all those things are important, but sometimes we spend too much time sitting at the table when we should be getting up, out, and down and taking care of business. Sometimes if you're like me, you spend too much time soaking in your compassion. You know what I mean? You feel it. Yeah, I was driving down the road the other day and listened to Don O'Brien, and Don had somebody on there with Angel Tree, Operation Angel Tree. And they were sharing testimonies. And they had this girl on there. She's not a girl now, she's a woman, but she was a recipient of a gift from the Angel Tree project years ago. And you listen to her whole testimony, her whole story, and as she sang, it was the gifts that she got from this Angel Tree project that caused her to want to know more about the Jesus behind the people who gave these gifts. And, you know, I'm driving down the road. I mean, I'm ready, you know. But sometimes we sit in that compassion too long and we don't do anything. We feel it. We know, yeah, this is a good thing, but we sit at the table too long. Sometimes it's time to just get out and get going and look, because you know what? There's people right here on Molokai. We don't have to look for some project beyond our shores. There's folks right here, right around us. And it's about being aware, and it's about being ready to get up, get out, get down. Here's the next one. Truly serving is about being willing to get messy. Verse 5, then he poured the water into a basin. He began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. Now remember, these guys have been walking around dusty streets. They're wearing leather sandals. Who knows how long they've had them. They've soaked up months, years perhaps, of sweat, bacteria. It's a nasty deal. He stoops down. He's washing their feet. You got to know, you're going to get messy in the process. It's not going to be necessarily a pleasant thing. There wasn't Johnson & Johnson's powder back in those days, you know. Let's get this little spray right guard on the feet. No, it was down there, it was washing, it was getting messy, getting dirty. It hit me, too, as I was looking at this. You know, if I'm in this situation, I'm thinking, yeah, something needs to be done. And to me, it's an easy solve. I just get everybody a towel and their own basin of water. I give them the water and the towel and say, guys, wash your feet. I mean, I've helped them. I've given them the tools they need. Do I really need to get down and do it myself? I mean, besides, Jesus could have said, look guys, on each of the towels I got your name monogrammed, and this is a keepsake. You hold on to this, and when I'm gone, hang it on your wall, and every time you look at it, you think about me. So I mean, we've done a wonderful thing. We've helped them clean their feet. We've given them a little memento to take home. They can feel good about it whenever they want to. We don't really need to get down ourselves. I mean, none of these guys were crippled or maimed or had problems with their hands as far as we know. They could have washed their own feet. Jesus chooses to go a step further and not just give them a towel and a bowl of water. He bends down and he does the dirty job himself. It's reminiscent of the story that Jesus gave about the Good Samaritan. You remember that story that Jesus gave? Because this self-righteous guy asked, well, who is my neighbor? And so Jesus gives him a story, and in Luke 10 we read about it. He says a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, and they stripped him, and they beat him, and they went away leaving him half dead. And by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise, a Levite also, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. What's going on here? These are two religious men. As they're walking down the road, they see this guy who's been beaten up, obviously been robbed, and instead of going over and going, man, we need to help this guy out, they go to the other side of the road and avoid him. You go, why would they do that? Because, see, it was inconvenient. If you were a religious person in those days and you touched somebody who was unclean, you had to go through a whole process of ceremonial cleansing. And it was a big hassle. I don't want to go through that whole deal. Besides, this is a busy road. There'll be somebody else to take care of this guy. And who knows? They may even have walked by on the other side of the road and said, God, help this dear soul who needs someone. See, sometimes people don't need our prayers. They need our actions. We're real good at praying sometimes in those situations. But maybe it's that God's saying, no, stop praying and start doing. Get messy. So here this guy comes by. He's a Samaritan. He's not even supposed to like Jews. They just don't get along. The Samaritan who was on a journey came upon him. And when he saw him, look, he felt compassion. But he didn't stay sitting at the table. He got up, out, and down, and he came to him, and he bandaged up his wounds, pouring oil and wine on them, and he put him on his own beast and brought him to an inn and took care of him. What did this guy do? He got messy. This guy'd been beaten up. He's got to clean his wounds. He's got to get in with the blood and the stuff that's coming out of this guy. He's got to bandage him up. He's got to put him on his own mule. He's got to walk beside him instead of ride his own animal. This guy gets messy. He gets dirty. It's not just about, I'm going to go up to the next town, I'm going to get some help, and I'm going to send it down for you. No, he gets down and he takes care of business. And if we're going to give the gift of service like Jesus gave it, there's going to be times that we need to get messy. And we need to get dirty. There's going to be times that it's not about our comfort. It's not about our convenience. And it's not about getting commended. It's about just taking care of business and being the servant. That's what it's about. Would you put this last one down? Truly serving is about being motivated by love. Motivated by love. First of all, love for God. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 5:14, for the love of Christ controls us, having concluded this, that one died for all, therefore all died. And he died for all so that they who live might no longer live for themselves, but for Him who died and rose again on their behalf. What's he saying? He's saying, look, Christ died for us. Let's live for Him. Where is our love for Him? How do I demonstrate love to Him? Well, I can come to church, and I can sing praise songs, and I can listen to a message, and I can walk out, and that's showing God love. Well, maybe like this much. The way that you really show love is how you treat other people. It's how you deal with others. Love for God is demonstrated this way. Yeah, it's great to worship Him, to spend time with Him. We need to do all that. But that's so we can get charged up and ready to be Him to other people. And so there's got to be this love for God. Hey, we were singing that song this morning. Great song. We have a Savior. What a thought. We have a Savior. What does that mean? He loves us. He loves us so much that He came to live and die for us. We should want to live for Him. So there's got to be this love that controls us, like Paul said. A love for God. Here's number 2, a love for others. And it's right here in this passage in John 13, verse 1. Before the feast of the Passover, Jesus, knowing that His hour had come, that He would depart out of this world to the Father, having loved His own who were in the world, He loved them to the end. To the end of what? To the end of His life. He loved them right up to the last breath. This is what it was saying. And because he loved them, he met the need that was there. He was willing to get out and down and wash feet and get messy because he was motivated by love. Love for God and love for others. Don't tell me how much you love God. Don't tell me, oh yeah, Jesus, praise Jesus. And then you do nothing for other people. It's bogus. Would you put this down? You can serve without loving. You ever seen somebody do that? You can do that. You can serve without loving. But you can't love without serving. You can do something and grumble through it and do it because, well, everybody's watching me, I guess I better do it. And you can serve that way. But you can't really love unless you're also serving. The two go hand in hand. Don't tell me how much you love your wife. Don't tell me how much you love your husband if you're not serving them on a regular basis. Stop jabbing in the ribs right now, okay? Oh, do you hear that? Because it works both ways, right? Because we're both serving each other, we're both getting served, and good things are happening. And you've got to be willing to say, yes, I love, and because I love, I do. I serve. Jesus demonstrated His love by serving. Hey, there's a lot of brands out there, clothing brands out there today, that they have visible labels, right? I mean, you can look and you see the label and it tells you what brand that is. You know, if a person's wearing Levi jeans and they got the big Levi thing on their belt area, or Wranglers, or whatever. And there's other brands out there that they have a little logo or symbol, and you know right away that's what it is. There are people that have occupations, and the things that they wear show what occupation. Firemen have a uniform. Policemen have a uniform. You don't have to wonder when you're out there and you need one of those guys. You can see them because of what they're wearing. It identifies who they are. There's a trademark that God said would help to identify His followers. It's a design that would help to show who they are. It's a magnificent, amazing, identifying mark. Listen to how Jesus put it. He said, "By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, that you" what? Love one another. That is the identifying mark. That's the logo. That's the thing. As people see us love, that's not normal. That's not regular. You're getting messy. You're getting down. You're serving in a way that's not usual. What is that? It's me living out who Christ has called me to be. And to give this gift of serving. Would you put this down on that last point? You and I are never more like Jesus than when we're serving. You say, really? Yeah, listen to what Jesus said. Matthew 20, verse 28. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give His life a ransom for many. We celebrate the King. The King has come. We celebrate Messiah. Messiah is here. Jesus was born in the manger. He's the Savior. But we forget that He was also called the suffering servant. The suffering servant? The King? The Messiah? The Savior? Yep. The one who got down and washed feet, was aware of the needs, was willing to meet those needs where those people were at, was willing to get down and be messy, motivated by love for the Father and love for others. He gave the gift of serving. So, what's your Christmas list look like this year? Oh, shirts, new slippers, coffee mugs. Maybe on that list, one of the things that you should have on there is forgiveness, honoring, serving. Maybe you should be looking for the gifts that won't fit under the tree, but are incredibly valuable. Can't put them in a box or bag or put a bow on it. But they're gifts that with the right motive, amazing things can happen. Would you bow your heads, please, and close your eyes?